Over the past year, I've had the pleasure of growing a team from a relatively small operation to a little bit more. Going into the new year, we're looking to hire and grow and scale. It's really an exciting time for me, just coming back into management, working with a startup, and just getting involved in growing something from early stages on out through. It's really a time to just showcase all the things that I've learned over the past couple of decades in engineering. I've had some wonderful managers in my career who have taught me and shown me what good leadership is all about and what it looks like and how important, direction setting can be. Throughout my engineering career, I've seen both good and not so good management styles. And what I'm trying to do now is keep all of the elements, all the things that I liked about my previous managers, and kind of discard or let fade away some of the things that didn't work out quite so well. One thing that always stressed me out when I wasn't sure if what I was doing on a day-to-day basis actually mattered to the business as a whole, or was it just, busy work, random spreadsheets that I had to fill out just to occupy my time? I think we as managers and leaders can help set direction and provide like a clear guiding principle to our teams so that they can better help and understand like what are they contributing to and why does it matter for the clear vision of the company. One of the reasons why I like working in a startup environment is because you could also show direct revenue correlations for your team's contributions. So in a larger enterprise or a larger organization, it gets a little bit murky in how your direct involvement contributes to the bottom line. But in a startup environment, it really does matter what you do every day and that you keep showing up and leaning in to the work itself, because there is an effect on the bottom line that is much easier to see at the startup level. When you first start your managing career, and how I first started was more of a direct management style in direct tasking, I guess you could say. You have a board or you have a team that you need objects, you need things done, and you task them out to each individual person. So you take the first three, you take the next three, please provide me updates, or I would go and then ask for updates from each individual member on the status of each individual task. It is extremely time consuming. It can be viewed as micromanaging sometimes if it's not done appropriately. But the benefits of direct tasking is that you know exactly what everybody is working on, exactly the status of all of those tasks, and exactly when those things are going to be completed. Also, if you have more introverts in your team, or if you have people that aren't as, they don't come to you exactly with the, hey, I have a problem here, you're able to uncover a lot more within that team. And you're able to kind of talk about the issues. You kind of unearth them. This is the way I started in management all those years ago. Was I read a bunch of books about Stephen Covey managing people, how to win friends and influence people, and then I would go and try to directly manage my people with a big Excel sheet at the time with all of the tasks that we needed to do, what the statuses were, and all of the notes that I had compiled and written, based on the information that my team provided me. It consumed all my time, so there wasn't really a lot of forward thinking, forward direction, any strategic settings. It seemed a little bit micromanagey, where you can kind of degrade the quality of decisions that are being made throughout the team, because the team now thinks that they can't make a decision without your input and your buy-in on a specific decision. So when a decision point comes up, it's very easy for the team member to kind of get stuck until they ask you your opinion. And then they're like, okay, I will go implement this thing because you told me to. And then therefore it obfuscates any responsibility off of the team member as well, because they're like, my manager told me to do it. And it's kind of a way to get around responsibility sometimes. So this works well for a while. You can do this as big as your team grows. You can kind of scale out linearly like that. Your managers have 3 to 5 direct reports. They ask questions. They start tasking specific things. They get the information, all well and good. When you have more than 5 direct reports, I would say, or really more than a reasonable D&D party, it becomes much more challenging to micromanage their activities. And I use the word micromanage. It becomes more challenging to directly manage all of their individual contributions. This is where I would consider moving into more of like a zone-based or intention-based leadership design, where you actually take your hand off, you micromanage less, but in doing so, you give your own individuals, your own direct reports, the freedom and flexibility to make decisions based on your direction and your intent. Intent-based networking is very similar to this, where you set an intention for your network and how you would like it to function, and then you can do automation against that intended state. So, you can specify certain servers, you can specify certain pathways, and if the intention doesn't match what's out in the field, you can run some automations to kind of true that up. The concept is similar in management and leadership. However, people are not devices, so you can't just do that true up. You have to kind of discuss and talk to them around like, what is the intention that you're trying to set? How do your contributions play into that intention? This is what I'm thinking for the next few years. So it's a little bit more manual than an automated process. So far. What is zone-based or intent-based leadership? Well, it involves setting clear goals and directions for your team. For example, you might want to set an intention to allocate and group together a mini tiger team to go resolve a critical issue, or you may wish to increase contributions to some open source projects in the next year. Just letting your team know what it is that your overall goals are for the year, both strategically and tactically, allows for them to then reflect on their own activities and then set themselves up to align to those initiatives. It's pretty self-explanatory. If I, as an individual contributor, I have no idea what my manager wants, and I have no idea what the business wants, how am I supposed to align myself to help achieve those goals? So what I like to do is set the direction early and remind often. So for instance, going into 2024, we want to, contribute more to our open source space. So in January of 2024, I'm going to say, hey, this is the intention for this year. We want to contribute, we want to, increase contributions to our open source community. Then when I'm discussing yearly goals with my team members, I can say, okay, our intention for the company, for the goal, for the team is to increase contributions to the open source projects. What in your goals can contribute to that goal? Like a direct line goal setting almost. They could say, well, I can contribute one article, or, how many articles did you contribute, or how many PRs did you submit last year? Is it reasonable to increase that number? And of course, we want quality increases, not just quantity. But what's your take on that? You get some feedback and then you go from there. But it's better to align to specific goals than just to say, okay, it's a new year. What would you like to do this year? And just leave it completely open-ended, because you don't really know exactly where that's going to go. So you want it more targeted and directed towards what your intentions for the company are. When you're setting intentions, it's crucial that you explain the reasons behind the intentions that you're setting for your team. So it just helps to understand the bigger picture and aligns everyone behind those efforts. Taking our open source example, saying, listen, our company was born and grew because of the open source community. It's been integral into our development and our growth. Therefore, this year, I would like to increase our contributions back to the open source community, as an example. When you explain your why or explain the reasons behind what your intentions are, it makes it more than just filler words, just saying, oh, I want to increase our contributions to open source. Well, that's nice, but what's that going to do for us? Or what's the reason behind it? It just puts more impact and puts more weight behind what your intention is. I would like to increase our open source community contributions because our company was built from the open source community. It just puts a little bit more emphasis behind that. With the intentions and the reasons in place, your team can then go and make decisions autonomously, guided by those overarching goals. You don't have to micromanage anymore each individualized task. There's actually a short story I read decades ago. I'm going to have to dig it up or see where I find it. But it's about a production manager who was running a factory. I'm going to have to reread it and then maybe retell this portion, recut it. There was a production manager who ran their plant so efficiently that somebody got, asked to come in and say, what's your secret? And they found the production manager up in their office all day, every day, appearing like he wasn't doing anything. And so, but their plant was, this is my memory from 20 years ago, their plant was one of the most efficient plants in the entire company. So then when they went and they analyzed his work, they thought he wasn't doing anything. They fired him. I think they fired him. I don't know if they fired him. They might have fired him or had him replicate the process. I'm not sure which. But the point is that the work that manager was actually doing was making his plant self-govern. So when there was a critical issue that came out, or when somebody came to his desk and knocked and said, hey, we've got a problem, his response wasn't just jumping in to solve the problem. His response a lot of times was, okay, and how are you going to solve that? Or, okay, what are your solutions based on that? It's like, don't bring a problem to me, bring a problem, and then what your analysis of that problem was, and then also how do you plan to solve that problem? Now we can discuss if you have any questions, but I trust you to make those decisions because that's why you're in that position. So when you give more trust, you give more responsibility, you just give more autonomy down into your team to make those calls and make those decisions. I've found that it empowers them to also step more into those roles or take on more ownership, which then frees you up to do all the things you're supposed to be doing. Because, when you get promoted into a different position, you can't hang on to the position that you had before. You have to separate those responsibilities out, let somebody come in, take those over, and then you yourself grow. But it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always run that smoothly. I myself, at times, when I was an engineer, was labeled as a perfectionist. And it takes a little bit of time to truly let go of certain responsibilities and characteristics. Now, when I made the transition to MC, I was very lucky in the fact that it was a company break and a role break and a technology break. There were a lot of natural breaks that occurred within that transition. I was able to come in and just from ground zero say, this is my new role. I am no longer going to be individually contributing. So it was a more natural transition, and I was able to make that break point. When I grow within this company, I may find a little bit more difficulty letting go of previous responsibilities. We're going to have to see. Just because it's I've grown these teams. I love everything I do, so it might be a little bit harder to let go. But I'm more than willing to. We shall see. I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves lately, so it's more think of yourself as the captain of your ship. As a leader, your role is more of a navigator, course correction, making sure the entire ship is functioning properly. You set the course, you set the direction, you maintain the alignment of the teams and of the goals. You make sure you don't hit any rocks along the way that are coming up, but your job isn't necessarily to raise the sails, is to lower the anchor, is to set the sail direction. It's not to do those individualized tasks. But of course, if there's a hole in the hull because the cannon fire just came in, you're going to run down with your plank of wood and try to repair that. You're not just going to let that issue fester and be like, it's not my job. I don't know what to tell you. That's not what I'm saying. As we begin in this new year, ensure your team knows the direction and your intentions. Ensure that they are aligned with what you are trying to do. Communicate your vision clearly, often, and often. State your goals, state your intentions, make sure it's well known. State your goals, state your intentions, make sure it's well known repeatedly throughout not only at the beginning of the year and at the half review cycle, but throughout the year. And if direction changes, update the team. Say, okay, we wanted to increase our open source contributions doubled. After the first couple of months, we reevaluated. Instead, we're going to increase the contributions by a quarter, and then we're going to go host some workshops somewhere. It's good to just get the team and keep the team on target as you're going through this exercise. Remember this. Communication is the key, to everything I'm learning, but it's really the key to effective intention-based leadership. Setting your goals, providing reasons behind those goals, and just letting your team navigate you towards success is essential. I'm going to be focused more on intention-based leadership going into the new year. Let me know down in the comments, does this resonate with you? How do you currently manage your teams? Is there anything that you'd like to add? I'd love to hear your comments.